The rain had a strange way of making lonely places feel even lonelier. On that cold evening, under a flickering street lamp outside a small roadside cafe, Arham sat with a paper cup of tea, growing colder in his shaking hands. His clothes were drenched, not from the weather, but from life. Months of exhaustion, rejections, and a weight on his heart that refused to lift. He stared at the empty chair across from him, the one where hope used to sit, before life began taking things away from him one by one. His job, his savings, his confidence, and perhaps worst of all, his belief that someone could ever look at him and see more than a tired man fighting to stay afloat. Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of small miracles, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. It truly helps more than you know. Arham had come to the cafe that evening not because he wanted tea, but because it was the only place open, the only corner where he could sit without being asked why his eyes looked swollen, or why his shoulders slouched like they were carrying an invisible world. He closed his eyes for a moment, letting the dull patter of rain on the metal roof numb his thoughts. He didn't notice the girl standing a few steps away, clutching a small bag to her chest, shivering slightly as she looked around for a place to sit. Her hair was messy, the hem of her clothes soaked, and her face held a weariness that didn't match her age. When she approached, her voice was barely above a whisper, fragile like a leaf trembling in the wind. She asked him if she could sit. Arham looked up, startled, then nodded. But as she slowly lowered herself into the chair, he noticed the faint rumbling of her stomach, the way she glanced at the menu board and then quickly looked away as if it hurt. That was when he said it, that she could sit only if she ate too. He didn't know why he said it. He didn't have much money left himself, but something in her eyes, something frightened yet hopeful, felt like a reflection of him. He waved the waiter and ordered the cheapest meal on the menu. As she ate slowly, as though rationing each bite, Arham studied her cautiously. She seemed lost, the kind of lost that wasn't about directions, but about life itself. Her hands trembled slightly, her lips were pale, and even though she kept her gaze low, her eyes carried stories of sleepless nights and swallowed tears. She didn't speak much, but when she finally did, she told him her name, Zaria. No last name, no details, just that. Arham didn't press further. Sometimes people needed space more than answers. He offered her his jacket when he saw her shiver again. She hesitated before accepting it, clutching it around her shoulders like a shield she didn't know she needed. For some reason, seeing her find comfort in something of his softened a small part of Arham's own pain. Over the next half hour, she relaxed a little, enough to reveal pieces of her story, not in sentences, but in hints. She had left home. She had no place to go. She had been searching for work, but no one hired a girl without references, without family nearby, without anything to prove she could be trusted. Her voice cracked when she spoke about hunger, about sleeping in waiting areas or bus stations, about pretending to be brave even when she couldn't remember the last time she felt safe. Arham listened, his heart tightening with every word. As the rain eased, he realized he had a choice. He could let her walk away into the night, or he could do something for her, something more than a meal. So he offered to help. Not money, he didn't have much, but a place to stay for the night. A small spare room in the tiny apartment he rented. Nothing fancy, nothing improper, just shelter. Zaria's eyes widened, suspicion flickering instinctively, then softening when she saw the sincerity in his expression. She agreed, cautiously, the way someone who had been hurt too many times learns to trust in tiny increments. They walked to his apartment, silent, but strangely connected by the quiet understanding that both were struggling souls trying to survive in a world that didn't slow down for anyone. When she stepped inside, she whispered something Arham didn't expect. "Thank you. No one has been this kind in a long time." Her voice shook like she wasn't used to saying those words. Arham simply nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. He hadn't heard gratitude in months. He had forgotten the warmth it brought. That night, for the first time in a long time, Arham didn't stay awake worrying about himself. He found himself wondering if Zarya slept peacefully in the small room, if she felt safe, if maybe, just maybe, life had given him a tiny purpose again. They fell into an unspoken routine over the next few days. Zarya cleaned around the apartment not out of obligation but gratitude. Arham shared whatever meals he could afford. She studied job lists. He recommended places. They lived quietly, not interfering with one another, yet becoming small anchors of stability in each other's sinking worlds. One morning, Arham returned home to find her sitting at the window, sunlight dancing on her face, making her look younger, calmer. She told him shyly that she had found a temporary job at a clothing shop. It didn't pay much, but it was a start. Arham felt something like pride rise within him, a warmth he hadn't felt in a long time. Days turned into weeks. Her laughter, once silent and cautious, slowly returned. His smile, once rare, began appearing more often. They talked more. They cooked together sometimes. They even shared stories. His about losing his job due to the company shutting down. Hers about being forced to leave home when circumstances became unbearable. Both were broken in ways society didn't see, yet each day with each other stitched a small piece of them back together. But life, as always, tested them. One evening, Zarya returned from work with her eyes red, her breath shaky. The shop had let her go, not for anything she did, but because business was slow and the owner couldn't afford extra help. Arham watched breakdowns before, but watching hers felt different. It hurt him more than he expected. She sobbed quietly, telling him she tried so hard, that she didn't want to be a burden, that she was scared of losing the small place of safety she had found. Arham assured her she wasn't a burden, though he worried himself. Their finances were tight. His savings were nearly gone. But he couldn't abandon her, not when she had no one. He spent the next few nights applying for jobs again, pushing past the discouragement that had once paralyzed him. Seeing Zarya fight every day rekindled something in him, determination. And then finally, he got a call. A warehouse job. Not glamorous, not high-paying, but honest work. He accepted immediately. Their lives shifted again. Arham leaving early in the morning, Zarya looking for part-time work, both supporting each other quietly, sometimes with words, sometimes with gestures. They had learned each other's silences, each other's fears, each other's unspoken needs. Arham grew gentle because she had revived the softness in him. Zarya grew confident because he believed in her when she barely recognized herself.
One night, after weeks of hardship slowly easing, they sat at the same cafe where they had first met, the same flickering light, the same cold evening, though now it felt warmer. When the waiter placed food on the table, Zarya smiled at Arham and gently placed her hand over his, a gesture that said more than words ever could. She told him that the day she approached him, she had been ready to give up. What stopped her was not his meal or his jacket, but the kindness in his eyes, the way he didn't look at her with judgment or pity. She told him he saved her. Arham felt a lump grow in his throat. He told her she saved him too, because her presence had brought purpose back into his life, had pushed him to stand again when he nearly accepted defeat. The world around them blurred, the noisy traffic, the echoing footsteps, the chill in the air. It all faded, leaving only the warmth between two broken hearts that had unknowingly healed each other. Life didn't magically transform overnight, but step by step their struggles softened. Zaria found steady work at a nearby bakery. Arham's job stabilized. They moved to a slightly better apartment. And with each milestone, no matter how small, they celebrated, sometimes with a shared meal, sometimes with a quiet moment on the balcony, sometimes with nothing more than a grateful smile. Months later, when the rain returned one evening and they found themselves back at that cafe, Zaria whispered the very words she had once spoken on the day their lives changed. "Can I sit here?" Arham looked at her, remembering everything, the hunger, the fear, the trembling voice, and smiled softly before answering with the words that had begun their story. "Only if you eat too." But this time she laughed, her eyes shining not with worry but love, a love stitched from wounds, kindness, and the unlikeliest of beginnings. They sat together, sharing food, sharing warmth, sharing a future neither thought they would ever find. And in that moment, Arham realized something powerful. Sometimes all it takes is one small act of kindness to rewrite two destinies at once. If this story touched your heart even a little, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps these stories reach more hearts. Before the ending, here's a special request. Tell us in the comments, do you believe one moment of kindness can change someone's entire life? In a world where so many walk past each other silently, Arham and Zaria became proof that sometimes the most beautiful stories begin with a simple question, asked softly under a dim streetlight on a night when two souls needed hope more than they knew. And sometimes the answer to that question becomes the start of everything.